You know what? Based on sort of all these different experiences that you had, and because I think you know how we were sort of talking about like that Mad Men era sort of Don Draper, like the creative genius, like the
Yeah.
person who you don't, he's like, I don't need like all of this surveys and customer whatever. Like he's just like my intuition. I know how people think, and you know, and they sort of tap into that. You know, it's a bit of an off tangent, but I would love to get your point of view on like this creative genius kind of like, for example, there's another example I know I can think of is that even Paula Scher, when she was with talking to Citibank for their logo redesign, she literally drew it on a napkin. She's like, yep, this is your logo. It's the umbrella on the T. And yeah, this is, and then she's like, the solution I had like in the meeting right then, but it took like 6 months of like process, buy-in, stakeholders to get it to finally materialize.
I think research is insanely valuable if it is done well. It's just that most groups don't do it the right way. People can't answer questions that you give them about how to change things or what they want. They can't articulate that. What they can do is they can tell you what they dislike. They can tell you what they wish for. They can tell you what they enjoy about a process. And then your job as the marketer is to say, what they're really saying is that they value this, right? It's finding out why they care. Like, you know, so why does that matter is the question that you kind of have to keep asking yourself until you get down to a fundamental where you can't ask that anymore. In terms of people that come across as the creative brilliance, I think the reason they come across that way is because their mental Rolodex of things to reference is so vast. So they're going, you know, if I had a dash of this idea that I've seen before and a dash of that idea, like they're doing that dinner mix that I was just referencing a second ago, but they're doing it in their head just very fast. I'll give you an example, not that I'm putting myself in that category, but a moment where something appeared to me that clearly was when we were working on music and arts back in the day before Guitar Center bought them. And the way that the brand had come up, it was a family-owned business, second or third generation, about 48 years old when we were playing in their sandbox with them. And their ideology came from the grandfather or father selling music programs to rural schools out of the trunk of his car. So as the concept evolved, it was, we are a friend to educator, we are safe to parents, and then we are cool to kids in that hierarchy. And when we were doing research on behalf of the brand, and we were doing it with teen kids, you know, their zone was like 6 to 18. The kids came in and they were just drawing on everything. They were drawing on the papers we gave them. They were drawing on themselves. They would draw on each other if we'd let them. Like they couldn't help but express themselves. And as an adult sitting in the back on the other side of the glass, I was watching that, and a memory sparked for me that you forget as an adult, which is when you're a kid, everything you do is filtered. You know, who you hang out with, where you go, when you have to be home, whether you study for your homework or not, right? Like, but music is one of those things that gives you a pass. When you're doing music, you don't have to do your homework. When you're doing music, you don't have to take out the trash because you're studying music and it's such a revered thing. And so we put together these ideas of needing to be heard and wanting freedom in a bigger way. And I wrote down, find your voice on a napkin in the back. And I was like, what these kids are actually striving for is being heard. And so one of the big recommendations that we made back to the brand at that time was we want to flip the paradigm to be cool to kids, safe to parents, and a friend to educators, because the children are the ones that are being ignored in this. And on top of that, societally speaking, they are at a place where they are, from a maturation level, ready to express themselves, but from a construct level, not given a stage in which to do it. And so, especially in that zone, they're like bursting at the seams, trying to share, trying to have an opinion, have that opinion be validated, you know, fail so that they can find out who they are. And we as parents and structure are used to thinking of them as toddlers. And so, you know, we're like protecting them and coddling them and shooting them down the thing. And they're saying, no, I'm ready. And music is one of those few places where they are allowed complete and total freedom to express themselves. And so the line that David wrote for that was so good. Dave Brocious, the brilliant copy guy that was on the account with me at the time, wrote was, it was a picture of a young teen girl sitting in the stairwell at school with a guitar propped up next to her and a coffee cup. And she was just sort of lazily sitting around. And the line was, be nice to me and I'll write a song about you. Be mean to me and I'll write 10 songs about you. And I just remember being like, the second I saw that concept, I was like, that's it. And it did. It went on to win national awards and the rest of it. But the premise that allowed us to get there came from understanding what the construct was of why they would care. And then the simplicity of the idea came from the fact that this is something we can all relate to if we'll just let ourselves remember what it felt like to be that trapped teen kid. Even if your parents were great, you still were a trapped teen kid in this respect. You didn't truly have freedom of expression. And that's exactly what we built upon. And the lines that we came up with and the campaign imagery that came out of all of that really spawned from that moment of seeing them draw on each other. And like everything else about the questions we were asking and everything else just fell away because it was so obvious what they were trying to achieve.
Beautiful. I'm just imagining
if it worked that easily every time, it would be great. And it doesn't. But at that moment, that was one of those where the bell rings and the clouds part and the angels sing for a second. And then you go, holy, that's it. There's no denying it. Now the question is how do we express it? And you'll burn days and weeks and months trying to make sure that you're expressing it just the right way that just gets you, and makes you go, ooh, right? But it starts with that fundamental understanding. And that's why I think so many companies now have it backward. They're so implementation or tactic focused over strategy. They're so impatient. And finance rules the roost and data rules the roost, and the companies have stopped learning how to relate. There's no more, I walked in and I saw her across a crowded room and my heart stopped and I had to say hello. That piece has been chopped off. And now it's, I walked across the thing and I said, you look like my kind of person, let's get married. That was the first thing out of everybody's mouth. Look at our features, look at our benefits, buy now. And we're not ready for that as consumers. We want a little of that magic of, I saw them across the room and the room got quiet and the light shone on her face and, I couldn't breathe and I couldn't sleep. That level of emotional wow that comes from a really well executed idea is almost seen as a dinosaur concept. And boy, isn't it. And I love that, by the way, because the more we move into the mediocrity of, well, I just pushed a button and I got a thing, the more those ideas are appreciated. And boy, when they come to the table, they're they just shine now because there's so few of them. It's, so it's a great time to be alive in advertising if you can stomach the PTSD of the clients having been abused. As long as that part of it is manageable, I think you're in a good place.
Yeah, I think one thing that you sort of where you ended with was, this is an internal joke I had with one of my colleagues is you're the best of average. So with all the companies racing for AI, it's you want to be the best of average? Go at it.
It's funny how that phrase has changed due to political correctness. I can remember back when it was the tallest man in the pygmy tribe, and that got substituted for the longest Q-tip in the box, and that's now been substituted for average, and it keeps getting watered down. But I think we're losing something in the translation of all of those because we're missing what was obvious and kind of sucker punched us when it was said to us, well, congratulations, you're an inch taller than everybody else. And it was oh crap, that idea was no good at all then, huh?